The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
Yes, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Red Pill Hardcore TV show. I'm your host, V. And, well, another recording, another day. So, I was asked on a very short notice to do an interview, even though I've been trying to do this interview for a very long time. It's usually hard to sync up with TIs, in media, as things are sabotaged and manipulated this way and that way, and it's extremely difficult. But for you guys, I don't quit. And with that said, I have a returning guest, Jaami Ali.
Yes, yes, y'all. Who got the vibe is the job, y'all. Job, y'all. You gotta liven it up. Inside, outside. Come around. Job. Yo, what's up?
Well, again, you're a returning guest, and I'm going to put the link in the show to her previous episode. Very riveting. One of the more shared episodes, one of the more liked episodes across our social media and throughout our contacts and our the viewers. So, without further ado, again, returning guest Jaami Ali. Why are you on the show today?
Well, let me refresh your memory, brother. Our dear friend Elvira Williams passed at the end of January. I believe January 30th, 2018. And her death impacted the community because she was so beloved, and she was the TI community's I called it engagement specialist. She was our engagement specialist. She helped to network people together with similar interests. She was a wonderful fundraiser. Before she became targeted, she was a civil rights activist in the Florida region. And one of the highlights of her activism was shutting down I-95 South. She shut down a highway that extended into a bridge, I believe. So due to her activism, she became targeted. And she was victimized with chemical spraying, radiation, and I met her at the WPIX taping. WPIX is the title station, I should say it's the title news station that covers news in New Jersey and New York. So in September 2013, we had, the infamous Aaron Alexis shooting. And Timothy White, at the time, who was the former vice president of Freedom from Covert Harassment and Surveillance, contacted Help Me Howard, anchor and producer, and informed WPIX that Aaron Alexis had been in touch with Freedom, and WPIX invited a whole bunch of targeted individuals to come and, discuss their targeting. And that's where I met Elvira. And when I saw her, she was tall, really lanky. She looked like a fashion shoot model. The only thing is she had burnt marks all over her face. And she had practically no hair on her head. And she was just really skinny. And those physical characteristics are typical of what happens to many targeted individuals, especially African American targeted individuals. Elvira Williams was also heir to an estate, and she was denied that. And when she died, there was a lot of hoopla within the TI community because we wanted an autopsy. Because she wanted one, and we wanted to see if we could find any implants, if they could do a blood analysis and see if there were any toxic chemicals. But the son did not have enough money to cover that autopsy, so it wasn't done. She was a really good friend of mine, and towards the end of last year, I kind of broke off relations. And I regret that.
The way you described her towards the end there, she sounds like someone who was being treated with radiation. So this could be a direct energy weapon, slow, soft kill. Is this your thinking?
Yes. She constantly went to the emergency room, and she went there for treatments related to the chemical spraying, asthma. She said she couldn't breathe, and she was constantly misdiagnosed. So she had issues with breathing, and they sent her to the psych ward. She had issues with, overload of toxins in her system. They took her to the psych ward. This country is not ready to deal with targeted individuals, the victimization that comes with being targeted. Because if they do, then the floodgates opens for lawsuits, for admission, then so much could happen. So they're just curtailing it with active denial. And this is what led to the Aaron Alexis shooting. Aaron Alexis went to his doctor. He went to the mental health provider. He went to an elected official. He went to Freedom from Covert Harassment. His needs could not be met one way or the other, and he took matters into his own hands, and shot 12 people and injured 3 other people. That's what's happening. People have exhausted resources set aside to specifically deal with them. When you go to a police officer, when you go to an elected official, they're paid by you. They're paid with what comes out of your pocket.
As someone who has been put into one of these hospitals as well, this was right before I started my radio show. This was an attempt to silence me. As activists, as whistleblowers, as any victim of any covert crimes, in order for them to be silenced. I mean, because you can't charge them with a crime and lock them away in jail. What's next? Well, we can be put in a madhouse, right? Be drugged up, experimented on, be sterilized, be euthanized in some rare cases. So that's the system. The system puts the bar at what crazy is. Yet this very system is doing false flag shootings and spraying chemtrails and destroying our food with GMO and, you know, all these trafficking children. But anytime we say something's going on, you're nuts. Okay, if I'm nuts, then what are you? So, yes.
I think it's pretty nuts to think that this could not happen, you know. And when it comes to African Americans, I think we have plenty of platform to say that we're victimized because we're black without even being activists. You know, we're victimized because of professional achievements. Now, here, let's just pretend this is a timeline. You know, a timeline. And let's just say this is, this right here represents Emancipation Proclamation, right? So blacks were free in 1865, and what emerged right after 1865? The Ku Klux Klan, right? So wherever, you know, blacks had housing, education, businesses, churches, they burnt them. Fair enough. Then, you know, the rise of the Ku Klux Klan grew steadily to 1 million. You know, the black man and woman's rise in society was seen as very threatening, that a million plus Ku Klux Klan members joined, and I believe in 1917, I'm not exactly sure of the date, but the U.S. called in the National Guard to put a clamp on Ku Klux Klan. And then as you know, between, you know, maybe 1900s and 1968, there would be a rise in racial violence. Lynchings, burnings, kidnappings, rapings. So all of this from Emancipation Proclamation, we still not escaped subjugation. So then in 1968, with the final passage of the most vast and comprehensive civil rights legislation, this is when they do the covert harassment. So the timeline shows continuation of harassment in all types of forms. Now, you know, we're in the time of, we're beyond modernity, we're entering into transhumanism. So the tactics, the modalities that are used to target us are going to be high tech. You know, they're not going to use the whip like they did in 1865. They're going to use, you know, high tech or artificial intelligence, you know, to target us. But the issue is still the same as it was in yesteryears. The success of black folks is very threatening to whites. Bottom line. And when you see Elvira Williams, you know, she was very dark, very tall, and they kind of took away her color. They made her like a lighter brown. They made her fat because it's just it's hate. And I think when we, you know, want to galvanize or frame our talking points, we can use, you know, racial discrimination to combat targeting. Will this happen in our time? I don't know. All I know is on the East Coast, as far as I know, except for Massachusetts, there are no other electronic harassment laws on the East Coast. You have them in Maine, Massachusetts, and in Michigan. But wherever there's a concentration of black people and a concentration of black activists, there's going to be no laws on electronic harassment and illegal human experimentation until this brims over the edge and people are rioting and you have a civil war. Then this issue will be dealt with. But people have to rush to it because this is multinational, because you've got Russia involved, you've got India involved. Now, when you look at congressional hearings, look very careful with a lot of the body language, what they're doing behind a panelist. And who's sitting behind a panelist? You're going to see Indian people sitting behind a panelist, and you might see some Chinese people sitting behind a panelist, and you might see some LGBT, because these are the people stringing policy. These are now your policy maker, and they want to get rid of, the talk of black reparations. So Elvira's death fits into this whole schema.
Michigan. The reason why, we made a trip up to Michigan was to actually I went to Detroit even, and talked to some of the politicians there, a congressman. It was actually the congressman that threw me in the nut ward there. It was really hilarious. His bodyguards, so intimidated, asked me to do all sorts of things, sit down on the ground when I'm spoken to, and don't say anything. I stood up to their faces and said, if you fear me, you are in the wrong line of work. Do what you're gonna do. So, but yeah, there are laws there. That's my point, though. There are laws in Michigan against this stuff. Dark energy weapons, specifically. From the government to civilians. Is it followed? No. Obviously not. So, the work that Jim Guest was doing, for example, these things are just being put down into, I would say, lock boxes of history for for anyone to be able to see what's going on. So your situation has developed. You sent me numerous videos to throw into the TV show. Would you like to describe what's going on in these videos? Or are they self-explanatory?
Some are self-explanatory. I mean, I sent you so many. Okay, so I want to kind of go back to race. I'm not afraid to talk about race as it is tied to targeting, because it is. We are a population within the community, and as a population we do get treated differently. So I have to talk about it. My target, I'm on a haptic system. I'm on an artificial intelligence system. There's a research university. There's a military system that is tied, that is connected to sensors, remote sensors, and they can control my movements. And I just don't have the traditional implants that many TIs have. Like many TIs, maybe they have the RFIDs or they just get the frequencies. I've got the designer implants. I've got the soft robotic implants. I've got the implants that change shape from gas to solid to liquid. I've got that kind of stuff. And they put that kind of stuff in me to discredit me, you know what I'm saying, because I'm African American and I'm targeted, and I'm subjected to the worst amount of treatment. And if it was discovered what was in me, the whole treasury would go to me. So what I showed you 2 pictures, and I showed you some video. One picture, my DNA starts to restore. It's not my face, but my DNA starts to restore when I turn off the when I turn off the electrical panel, which shuts down all power, all Wi-Fi, and all electrical system. Then I take a needle, I dip it in OxyClean, and I start to puncture myself. What I'm puncturing is polymers, a grid, and I'm breaking the grid. My head comes back. My teeth start to grow enamel. My teeth start to reshape. My nose goes back. My eyes reshape. My structure starts to come back, and I start to look feminine and very young. Then the next day, less than, I think, 24 hours, but 23 hours, I look completely aged. That's because my roommates came back, turned on the electrical panel. They wrapped up the Wi-Fi signal. The planes kept flying back and forth, back and forth. And so the proof is right there, that I'm a victim of electronic harassment, and that I'm going through something that we call radio frequency ablation, and that's where radio frequencies are used, or energetic material is used to kind of resculpt the body, the bone, the muscle, mainly muscle, large muscle groups.
Well, this all falls underneath, Morgellons. I'm hearing this a lot, actually. Morgellons is tearing up people's health left and right. And it's really a crime that doctors aren't seeing this stuff. How much blood work is done around the world? This hospital, that university, this university, this research center. No one can see the blood. I mean, the entire medical industry is corrupt if they can't see any of this stuff.
I mean, I look like a complete different person. I don't know how my blood work comes. I went to the emergency room last Monday. I don't know how it comes back normal. You know what I'm saying? I have a different set of hands. I don't know how my fingerprints, my current fingerprints, match to my identity. There's a lot of collusion, and there's a lot of, suppression. But the other video that I showed you, I was actually watching C-SPAN's televised hearings on Pfizer. As I'm watching the Pfizer hearings, okay, Foreign Surveillance Act, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, I'm being grossly electronically harassed. So then I take my EMF reader and I take it around the house. When I take it to a shielded environment, the EMF reading significantly dropped to 100. And I think the EMF reader says the normal range for EMF deliverance to the environment is 20 to 60 EMF gaps.
Well,
so I took it outside the washing machine, which has a steel drum, and I brought it near my bed. When I brought it near my bed, it went up to 2,000 EMF. Then I brought it to my fridge, and it was delivering 1,800 to 3,000. When I put my head near the fridge.
Well, hold on. So, but what you're telling me is that your meter, I mean, are you able to triangulate? Do you have multiple meters? Because, I mean, if you're able to triangulate, you could pick up, an external source that doesn't even necessarily have to even be in your apartment. They can just be hitting you and playing with you just to move you around. Because that's something these people like to do. They like to move people around in the maze, and they get lots of enjoyment out of it.
Well, you can calibrate. You can move it and calibrate. I know I've unplugged my fridge. The reading didn't change. That I noticed. But I noticed it seemed to be reliable. When it went into the steel drum, like the higher the reader was to the rim of the washing machine, the reader increased. The sooner I brought it to the base of the washing machine drum, the reader decreased. The EMF readings decreased. It seemed to be reliable.
We're going to watch some of those videos and review the material on her condition, on Jaami's condition. And after the commercial break, it'll be a music tribute to Elvira Williams from Jaami Ali. So stay tuned for that.
Satisfying some people, what are the NSA and the FBI doing to address these specific concerns of the court? And this will have to be my last question, so both of you answer that if you would.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go first since the first quote you read concerned NSA. Yeah. We take our duty of candor to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court as well as to our overseers very, very seriously. Obviously, I cannot speak for Judge Collier, what she meant specifically when she wrote that in the opinion. But my understanding factually of what happened was as follows. We had initially identified that we had made some errors of U.S. person queries against our upstream collection. So since 2011, our minimization procedures had prohibited outright any U.S. person queries running against upstream 702 collection, largely because of abouts communications. We had reported the initial query errors, I believe it was in 2015 when we made our initial report, but our Office of Inspector General as well as our compliance group had separate reviews ongoing to try to determine the scope and scale of the problem. So during the course of filing the renewal for the 702 certifications that were pending, the court held a hearing in early October 2016 when it asked about various compliance matters to include the improper queries, and we reported on the status of those investigations as we knew them to be at that time. On about 2 or 3 weeks later, the Office of Inspector General completed its follow-up review of the U.S. person query and discovered that the scope of the problem was larger than we'd originally reported. As soon as we identified that the problem was larger than we thought it was, we notified the Justice Department and the ODNI. In turn, the court was notified, and the court held a hearing on October 26th to go into further detail about the problem, and that ultimately led to a couple of extensions of the certifications, and ultimately our decision to terminate abouts collection in order to remedy the compliance problem. So my sense is that the institutional lack of candor that the court was referring to was really frustration that when we had the hearing on October 6th, we did not know the full scope and scale of the problem until later, which was reported again roughly October 24th.
There was an issue with reporting that particular matter in a timely fashion. So moving forward, we are going to ensure compliance with the policies already in place so that when we identify issues like this, or whether we identify issues involving how we store.
Do you believe that the only way to handle it is terminate it overall?
No, ma'am, because the agency has a lot of smart engineers, and we think that given enough time, we might be able to come up with a technical solution that
somebody's hitting it from the side.
We would have to weigh is operationally, what are we seeing in the operational environment? Because this is always a trade-off. What's the foreign intelligence loss? And there was definitely foreign intelligence loss when we made the decision. And so if we're able to recover or
is that notable foreign intelligence loss?
It's hard to say what you're not getting. A statutory bar is presuming about.
And if I could add just one more thing, the other thing that I think is important to keep in mind, if NSA were to develop the technology or additional minimization procedures to address this issue, they would have, and we would have to go back to the FISA court and seek a pre-approval. So there is a check to make sure that if this is turned back on at the appropriate time, it's done so in a lawful and appropriate way.
Time is going to expire. What do you suggest we do about nothing? Try to work with NSA on an amendment? We'd rather get it right than wrong.
Black folks who say black don't crack, my skin didn't, they're very upset at that. So they put this, it's like this aerosol thing, because it's like you think it's a spray because it's or some type of paint, because when you touch it, there's like a stickiness in my tongue, in my teeth, even when I touch my hands. It's not like it's a stickiness. So they're using technology to devastate the black DNA because the black DNA is the truth. It don't crack. It doesn't age. You keep in shape. You are smart. You don't get these neurological diseases for the general part. So they're trying to induce what they want to see for racialized purposes and to make themselves feel good.
Hello, I'm B from the Red Pill Hardcore TV show, and I'm here to deliver a message to you. I am standing up, and I think you guys should stand up too. What are we standing up for? Clean air. The New World governments have been spraying aluminum, strontium, barium, all kinds of nanoparticulates, salts, heavy metals, and we are losing our environment. We have trees with aluminum toxicity. Our wildlife is disappearing, one species at a time. We have weather warfare weaponry. If there is anything such as global warming, well, we have ionospheric heaters that's dramatically bombarding our atmosphere. All this damage can be done to the environment by these nanoparticulates being sprayed into the atmosphere. We know that it's causing respiratory issues. We know that it's causing autism. We know that it's causing Morgellons, the transhumanistic disease. What else is it doing? I think it may just be altering our minds. Watch my movie, and then you decide.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jaami Ali, and I'm going to do a performance for Elvira Williams of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Tuesday night, January the 30th, 2018. She collapsed in her home, and her son was there to try to revive her, but she passed. Elvira Williams is a loving mother. She was a human rights activist for most her life. I believe in 1997 or 98, she shut down the Florida I-95 for 2 hours with regards to a human rights issue. And then as a result of her activism and also as a result of her bloodline, as per, her witness testimony, she became a targeted individual. And she became subjected to illegal human experimentation with the use of microwaves and extremely low frequencies. She worked tirelessly to fundraise on my outreach efforts to raise awareness on this issue as I became a targeted individual. And as I speak to you, I'm being hit with ELF myself. So without further ado, let me start the performance. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. Woo! Someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday.
Rest in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We're not afraid. Come on. That is one of Elvira Williams' favorite songs. So, I thought I'd put a twist to it. Do it to a hip hop track. Gift for Sister Elvira Williams. She was a tireless advocate for the targeted individual community, and she helped to raise thousands of dollars for numerous causes and for the TI cause. Part of some TIs are in a mind control program, and microwaves are being used to create pain, discomfort, and to sometimes elicit Manchurian behavior, and behavior that's completely opposite than the behavior that is germane to that subject personality. So as for myself, that's the program I'm in, and my perps use a lot of props and street theater to communicate aspects of my targeting. And one of the things they used to say is just that easy. If I obey, if I do what the perpetrators of this crime want me to do, then my life will be just easy. And so that serves as the basis for this poem. So I'm just gonna go ahead and sing. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Turn me around. Turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody. I just keep on walking, keep on talking, marching to freedom. Rest in peace, Elvira. I hope this broadcast is going live. Please remember, I'm also a targeted individual, so as I'm singing, I'm being hit with ELF to kind of trip. So that's what happened in the last tune, but I think I kind of picked it up. But anyway, this is a performance fundraiser for Elvira Williams. She passed January I think that was Tuesday. So that would be January 30th, I think. I'm not quite sure what that exact date was, but she did die on Tuesday of this week. And she also encouraged audience members to visit Vomit, VOMITT.com /index77. We encourage audience members, targeted individuals, community stakeholders to get in contact with Marco Rubio to demand an investigation of Elvira Williams' death. They said that she died of asthma, but what people don't know that ELF signals can be sent to your organs to elicit certain biological responses. And that way the perpetrators are protected from persecution. We would like Marco Rubio to also request the presence of experts that deal with examining tissue, blood samples, urine, hair samples of targeted individuals, so there could be a second opinion alongside of the Broward County Medical Examiner's office. Marco Rubio's number is area code 202-224-3041. 202-224-3041. All right. She died this Tuesday. She collapsed on a floor, and her son could not revive her. In 2015, I requested some diagnostics, and I checked them out myself. I checked out my x-rays and my MRIs. And what I found astounded me. I have a lot of soft robotics, that means very pliable, implants within my tissue, within the skin, that changes the way that I look. And so after coming across this information and receiving a lot of pushback from doctors, radiologists, even community stakeholders, I wrote this song called I'm a Targeted Individual. And again, I'm going to play it to some hip hop. I wrote this in 2015, so forgive me, this is very last minute. So yeah, I hope it comes across. Yeah, I'm still working it out. So you and you will know nothing but me. It's a breakdown, takedown of humanity. All my body parts are taken out and clones you see. Hiding history and the prophecy. The silicone is what you see in me. The DOD is part of the cop-out too. They scared me from me, I'm very free. Whoa, whoa. Whoa, oh, yeah. All you get is propaganda nation. Aaron Alexis, marinate baby. Mary and Harry, they call them crazy. Not delusional, just a nod that you baby. I got the proof. DOT baby, ELF, that's microwave baby. Hit your body, can drive you crazy. Time for some action, Congress so you're lazy. Elvira Williams was a friend to the end. T.I.'s called her when the wits hit the end. She was the B.O. and the C.O. to the end. She collapsed, DOT was at hand. I hit the booth like the young black youth. To tell the truth, what you gonna do? Kill me too for the ends? Woo, they kill me. Oh, oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Please make contact with Marco Rubio's office and demand an investigation. Again, Marco Rubio's telephone number is 202-224-3041. Call his DC office and state that a constituent by the name of Elvira Williams recently passed. She continuously complained for years to no end to have an investigation into her targeting. For those who do not know, a targeted individual is someone who is ostracized for illegal treatment. They are gang stalked, which means sometimes a group of individuals follow them and harass them. Targeted individuals also have chips, some classic like RFIDs, some very designer weapons, designer implants that are plastic and pliable, and they can expand and contract. They are also hit with ELF, extremely low frequencies, and microwaves. And Elvira Williams complained having asthmatic conditions as a result of that. She said that she was victimized in the hospital and that the doctors and nurses denied her nebula so that it could help her breathe. But all in all, ELF, extremely low frequencies, was the culprit. And many TIs who go ahead and get investigations find that it's a defense contractor that is hitting them with ELF. We also have the police nationwide and worldwide that's also behind this. So we need Marco Rubio to get on the case. This is also FISA discussion. You know, they just passed FISA, and now there's a memo that's circulating that says that, you know, senior staff in the FBI abused FISA rules for their own purposes. So this is very much tied into Elvira's case, because at the heart of this is illegal surveillance. At the heart of this is government officials overstepping their bounds and using their credentials for punitive measures, and people like Elvira and other victims are dying and are becoming very sick. So we want to put an end to targeting, and it behooves Marco Rubio to demand an investigation, because it is in the public's interest to know what happened to Elvira, because if it can happen to Elvira, it can happen to anyone. Elvira was targeted way before I was. I never heard of it, and then years later, or 15 years later, I became targeted. And if anybody wants to get more information on illegal human experimentation, on targeting, they can visit PAX International. That would be PACTSITL or ITNL.org. PAX International. I think it stands for People Against Covert Technologies International. They have weekly newsletters with lots of information. They have podcasts twice a week. They do lobbying on the local level to get illegal human experimentation recognized on the books. And for those who do not know, electronic harassment is another name for ELF attacks. And in 3 states, Maine, Massachusetts, and Michigan, electronic assaults are considered felonies. They go from misdemeanors to felonies, and some people can be imprisoned for a lifetime if it's found that the energetic materials that was used to attack the person debilitated them. So, just a heads up on that. So let me just try to go on to a next song, and I need your patience, so thank you. Let everyone stand like heavenly, living with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise, high as the listening sky. Let it resound down as a golden sing. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark passes by. Sing a song full of hope that the present has started. Facing the rising sun of a new day has begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stay the road we tried, bitter the chastening ride. Loving the day when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat, have not our weary feet come to the place for which our Father sighed. We have come over a way that will teach. Having watered, we have come, treading our path through the blood, the slaughter, and out from up we pass it. Now we stand at last, where the white flame of our bright star is cast. God of a weary years, God of a silent tears, Thou who hast brought us thus far from the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into his light. Brought us into his light. For those of you who don't know Elvira Williams, she is a resident of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. She is a mother, and she was a human rights activist for the majority of her life. She advocated for the homeless. She advocated for those with HIV. She advocated for Haitians. And she advocated for those who are victims of illegal human experimentation. And as a result of her tremendous advocacy efforts, which kind of had some milestones in it, she became targeted. I believe in 1997 and 1998, she and some other activists shut down I-95 in Florida. And when she became targeted, her health suffered tremendously. Invisible weapons such as directional energy was used to target her. In 3 states, electronic harassment is illegal. The penalties range from misdemeanor to felony. And if it is found that the subject or the victim has suffered tremendous biological damage, the perpetrator of this crime can be arrested for lifetime. In 3 states, electronic harassment is recognized, in Maine, Massachusetts, and Michigan. And actually, we need these laws to be established in all the states of the USA. She helped to fundraise for my projects. Some of the projects actually ended up on major media. I would say the footage from those projects. So I had collaborated with another targeted individual in Florida State University, bringing awareness to the death of Aaron Alexis and Myron May and Miriam Carey, and footage from that event landed on CBS News this morning. I also did a TI Media Day in New Jersey, and Vice Media saw it and started communicating with me and decided to use another piece of work that ended up on the UK documentary of TI's. Some of my work has also been included in the New York Times. I didn't receive the credit for whatever reason, but it was in the New York Times. I think it was June the 10th of 2016. So we really need support. The basis for targeting someone starts with surveillance. Okay, you have to know where the person is to target the person, and so many targeted, and not many, but I would say a good number have been fortunate enough to meet with investigators to find out where the signals hitting them are licensed to, and many of them are licensed to defense contractors. Defense contractors, they make directional energy weapons. They manage weapons. They create drones. Usually that's used for combat. However, some targeted individuals, a lot of them are whistleblowers. A lot of them create intellectual property, and a lot of them have intellectual property registered to them, and their message is powerful, and the government sees them as a threat and treats them as a target. And so there is a protocol for targeting individuals. There was a document released in 2007. It's called the Joint Targeting Task Force, and it outlines who's involved in targeting people, who is the IC, the intelligence community, and part of the intelligence community is social service agencies, and social service agencies work as a branch with doctors. And Elvira, was a victim of medical neglect, and she asked for a certain treatment and she was denied because she was targeted. This is a very important time right now where we're talking about illegal surveillance. We're talking about the overreach of the FBI, the NSA, the Department of Defense, and the police, meaning they're using their credentials to break FISA rules, Foreign Intelligence Service Act rules, to target citizens. And we have quite a bit of, people that are in the news right now for breaking, breaking FISA rules, and so you can check that out in the news.